What is exciting? Welcome back to the production vlog.
Red Pill production vlog. Man, we did casting calls this week.
Yes, in the last 3 days.
Last 3 days. 3 days of casting calls. And it has been fantastic.
Lots of variation.
Lots of really good stuff. And in fact, it was so inspiring. There was so much good stuff, so inspiring, so many great auditions that it gave us some ideas, and we made some tweaks to the script and the mise en scène.
Yes.
In order to incorporate some inspiring performances. So much in the same way that the character of Jesse did not die at the end of season 1 of Breaking Bad because Aaron Paul's performance was so good.
We're adapting.
These performances, these auditions were so good that we are adapting to include additional performances.
Yeah, I think the key element from day one about this core concept was that we used the word video portrait. So essentially, Dan and I kind of just finished the auditions, and then we thought, oh, what if we had more of them in it, and we'd like cut it together and have different faces as our character Vox. And then we kind of just had more discussion, rolled out iterated, and then we're just kind of like, what if they're just part of it?
Yeah.
Like, what if they're part of the portrait, so they each have their own space in it? And the core concept of what we're trying to portray about Red Pill kind of mentality still is maintained. If anything, I think it's more enhanced.
Yeah. And this also actually, it solved a problem, a minor problem that had been something that we'd been considering, which was, how do you fill out? So you have the set and you've got the composition of it. And we had the core idea and we had a bunch of elements for it. But there were a few things where we're like, well, I'm not really sure what we're going to put there, but that's a minor detail, so we'll get around to that when we've got bigger things like location locked down. You gotta take decisions one at a time.
We're like, prop master.
Yeah,
figure it out.
Figure it out for us.
Yeah.
Like that's why we're hiring you, is for your creative contribution to this project. And this was like, wait, that's what we do. This gives us a thing to do with that space. It's like, hey, remember that empty space? Let's put this in there.
And then, but it also adds more contextual kind of explanation a little bit, about the philosophy of Red Pill followings and kind of like the brotherhood. No.
It was a great it was a great little sort of creative moment, and I think I'm excited to mention it because it demonstrates the sort of the fluid process, the fluid nature of the creative process.
Well, and I think that's the best part too, is that you never, I'm not saying it's a bad way of filmmaking, but if you lock yourself down to certain expectations or certain rules, then you kind of eliminate the ability to expand your project to whatever comes your way, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
unless you just happen to be Stanley Kubrick, then chances are, and even this. So if you want to go full totalitarian, where you're like, no, I'm Kubrick, I am the next Kubrick, I am going to, everything will be according to my plan, then chances are good that 1, you're not Stanley Kubrick, and 2, you overestimate even the, genius of Kubrick's ideas.
Right.
Because, you look at it critically, not everything, his works are not perfect.
No.
They're very good. He was a phenomenal filmmaker, but think of how many Kubrick movies you just kind of go oh, yeah, there's that part, there's that sequence that goes on too long, there's that decision that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And, yes, he was able to accomplish amazing things by being just a complete totalitarian, but at the same time, how many how many rough patches could have been smoothed over if he opened himself more to the creative contributions of his team.
Well, and that's the idea of his perfectionism was from his perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And ultimately, art is based on your perspective. Like, it's not going to be interpreted the same way for everyone. And that's, I think, a very important aspect to consider when you're being a filmmaker.
Yeah.
That's just my view. And then some people don't agree with that, and that's totally fine too.
Let's see. In project terms, what else has gone on this week?
Location. We have
Finally
thrown in the line, and we finally have a bite.
Yeah. Thank you so much to Steve, our
Yes.
project manager, our PM. We put him in charge of getting that location locked down, and it's not locked yet, but we're finally.
We have someone on the other end willing to start having a communication.
Yeah, and in fact, we're gonna go see the space. Like they're actually just like, yeah, coming down and see the space. And so if they're at that point where they're letting us like come into the space and look at it, then unless they either completely misunderstood our budget or the space is actually like leaking, like it's probably gonna be it. Like basically at this point with the timelines and whatnot, if we can afford the space and there's no overt problems, it's our space.
Yeah. And again, this is not to bash MTM like in any way, shape, or form. They just have a priority with a very large production.
Yeah, we found out what the production was, and it's kind of like in retrospect, it's like, I don't blame you for brushing us off.
But yeah, so again, we will probably actually be renting from MTM, so all their Pee-wee dolly and their track and their lights and stuff like that. We have to go talk to them about that yet. However,
particularly the dolly, because they've only got I think one or two of the Pee-wees.
If not, there's also a production house in the city called William F. White's, and then we'll approach them after MTM if that's not available.
And if they don't have a Pee-wee dolly, then we're boned. Well, then we just then we make do with a doorway dolly.
Yeah, then we make do, which is not preferred.
It's not preferred, but it is doable.
Yeah.
It's we've used them a lot, which is why we would rather use a Pee-wee.
We want to step up.
We want to step up
in this world.
You know, at the very bottom, like as the sort of dead end option is that we end up with just the. Oh, what is it? The Dana dolly, where it's just the platform, and then you end up putting your tripod on top of it and just like strapping it down with cable.
I'm making an executive decision right now that will not be allowed to happen on our set. Just flat out, no. I will pay for the dolly.
We just cargo strap it down. You know, we've been there, done that. We did that on.
Oh no.
We did that on One Hit Die, and it turned out. It just took 3 hours to set up and get it stable.
Right. We don't have time for that. We don't got time for that. Okay.
We don't want our grips to have a 5:30, 6 a.m. call.
Oh, jeez, yeah, no, not allowed. Again, executive producer decision, no. Well, I'm not an executive producer, but producer decision, no. Okay, what else? Oh, we are in talks with our construction crew, who's going to build our set and also do our props for us, hopefully. Mike is his name, and he and a bunch of his pal, I don't know who they are. I think they're his friends, but they own a shop together. Yeah. And they've got a
fabrication shop.
Fabrication shop. And they are going to be meeting with Dan and most likely Steve, as I might be out of the town by then, to go over all those plans, make sure the measurements are correct, and start talking about the actual look of the set and whether to make it look the way you envision it to be. I'm seriously thinking shag carpet for the floor. Like purple.
Purple shag? I was thinking more just like a mute brown.
Yes.
Like a beige.
I know.
Purple? Yeah? No.
I don't even think they fabricate that anymore.
Purple shag.
Purple shag.
I'd keep the leftovers and just like redo my house.
I wouldn't go over to your house anymore. HQ wouldn't be HQ no more. Okay, what else can we talk about? Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. Again, it's about, I think the one concern that I have still is because the location is still kind of not confirmed and set down.
It's not solid until money has changed hands.
Mm-hmm. And then ultimately that also affects the shoot date.
Yeah.
And that is really the only thing right now, because not only are we trying to shoot in early January, so are other 14 Alberta productions for STORYHIVE. So, you know, we've already talked to some actors who are on other STORYHIVE projects already, which is great, but it's, you know, we got to think about scheduling. So that's another thing to think about.
Yep. I'm stoked. I'm excited.
Yes.
I feel a lot better today than I felt most of the week. Things were kind of grim and blue in the world of Dan up until Friday.
Yeah. Star Wars helped.
Star Wars helped, and then doing that mini-sode about Star Wars and kind of getting my creative block
Right. Yeah.
out of the, like, you know, making something that, yeah.
But do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about like
About depression?
About depression, but also about how that overwhelming expectation of like something that really belongs to you can affect.
Yeah, it's really, there's a lot of pressure that, I mean, and most of it is being put on me by myself. It's my own expectations, and my own perceived consequences for, like, if things, so what if I don't live up to expectations? What if I don't meet my expectations? What if things go wrong? What if things go catastrophically wrong and I end up, you know, becoming, it's like, you know, you invent these things where it's like, realistically, it's such a, like, if, as long as I don't, you know, burn any bridges, then even if it just absolutely sucks, it doesn't matter, because if the only problem is that it, like, doesn't quite come together, well, then I can just bury it.
Right.
You know, more or less. Like, I could just, it's like, all right, well, that didn't work, move on. So really, like, the stakes are super low.
They are. However, playing the what if
game
is
and, like,
toxic, right?
Yeah, and constantly sort of, like, second guessing yourself, and it's really easy to get worried that, like, okay, well, you know, it's now Tuesday, it's mid-December, and, like, well, this isn't locked down and that isn't locked down, and, like, what if Steve can't find a place?
Right.
What if, you know, everything's rented out? What if we end up running into just some massive logistical thing, and then it's, you know, January 15th? And the thing is that when you've got that much chaos, the temptation is just to shut down.
Right.
And just to, like, it's like, oh, well, here's all these problems, so I'm going to ignore them and hope they go away, because eventually they will go away.
Yeah.
On a long enough timeline, everything goes away. Someday
all die.
The sun will expand and will consume the earth,
Yeah.
erasing all evidence that any of this ever happened.
Yeah.
And take comfort in knowing
In
that oblivion waits for that at the end of it all is oblivion.
Yeah.
And no one will remember what happened that night. But so it got kind of grim, and it led to a pretty, you know, sort of rough depression surge that I was dealing with for most of the week. But I feel like that has passed. Doesn't mean it won't come back. Hopefully it doesn't. But, you know, such is the challenges of making things while also dealing with, you know, personal.
Oh, totally. And I don't think that's isolated to just you.
No,
you know,
no,
like,
I am not special.
No, that came out totally wrong. What I mean that is that, if anything, we should start talking about that more, right? We're recognizing that this is the process sometimes,
Yes.
right? And it shouldn't be frowned upon as being, you know, some sort of, I don't know, like, discrepancy in how things are made, right? You know, our project isn't going to be suffering because of that, you know? If anything, it's going to be better.
Well, and we were talking. This is something that we were talking about a couple days ago when we first started the casting. When we first started the auditions, was that we were talking about the schedule, and it was like, oh well, there's a lot of this anxiety about things not being firmed down, and we have to remind ourselves that it's like the timeline of how things are falling into place right now is ordinary. Like this is a very sort of ordinary example of the process of like, oh well, you're a couple weeks away from shooting, but there's still things that are in flux. That's routine.
Yeah.
Like that really is. We've seen it over and over again. As much as we wanted to be like we really wanted to just sort of like charge out the gate, and it's like, all right, December 3rd, we've got our location on lock. December 5th,
ready to go.
We've got our crew on lock, ready to go.
Yeah.
And like it's like we can spend a month polishing. That's not like that's the dream.
Yeah.
That's not how it happens.
How it actually happens.
9 out of 10 times.
No.
I
think, another aspect of though that's been frustrating for me in particular is I know people who have that experience already.
Yeah.
Like they have the contacts and they have the locations and they know who to phone, and I don't have any of that. So that's been one of my shortfalls. I feel as a producer, I'm just like, how am I able to support Dan with his like the directing creative aspects when I have nothing to bring to the table in terms of that? And of course that led to the decision to bring on Steve, because we know that he has that experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I hope that I've been supporting you enough in the process to get where we are. But it's always been something that I think we've been really good at, is communicating that. When we had the last production vlog, when I was over there helping Dan put the script pieces in together, I didn't go over there saying, okay, we're going to go do this, and show up and Dan, get down to work, and blah, blah, blah. I said in a text, I was like, do you even want me to help? Like, just focus your attention towards doing this. And I hope that was okay.
No, yeah, because it's like, and there are absolutely times like when I'm working on stuff, like when I'm cutting or when I'm writing, that there are times where it's like, no, what I need to do is I need to just turtle up and do it. That I'm not in a place where I can like emotionally handle trying to navigate, the collaborative process. Then there's other times where it's like, no, I need to collaborate, like right now. Like I need someone to like tell me my ideas are stupid, and that it's like, yeah.
Right. I was about to say, I'm like, you turtle up as who though? Because I mean, turtling up as Raphael. Look out, because I don't know if I want to show up for that.
That was not what I meant. That was not what I meant.
But yeah, I mean, it's been and I think that's so great about these production vlogs too, is it's allowing us to kind of dissect our experiences going through this. And again, this is new for Dan and I. Having the capacity to have the funds available and ready to go, and then finding all the components to make it work.
Yeah.
That's what I've been finding is the most alien.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, we're looking for a location that we're then going to pay money for, rather than just sending out a Facebook blast being like, hey, who's willing to let us take over their living room? Who's got a kitchen with an island?
Yeah. Or does anyone got a camera package that they can just like lend us? Or how about just yourselves and we'll feed you? That's very typical as well.
Yeah.
But no, I think going back to, we're in a very normal state right now. I don't think we're behind.
No.
No. And again, if I need to email that to you every single day, I'll do that.
Yeah, all right.
But so lots happening. It's going to be very exciting to pick out who's going to be in this film. Oh, and the other component of that, it wasn't just about like the visuals. We actually found some people who could do the voiceover work for our stuff.
Yes, we were auditioning voices at the same time.
Yeah, and some of them were like, whoa. Whoa.
Whoa.
But,
whoa.
Whoa. Whoa.
All right, that's telling me media is almost full.
Okay.
The card's almost full, so let's...
We're going to just cut out all those woes to save time. High five?
High five.